So I would like to present our research, Students' Online Behavior in Time of COVID-19 Pandemic, Insights from Poland and Ukraine. This research was made by Dariusz, Dymek, Mariusz, Grabowski, Grażyna, Paliwoda-Pękosz, and Svitlana Didkivska from Krakow University of Economics, and Tetiana Vakaliuk from Żytomyr Polytechnical State University. In recent years, the number of Ukrainian students in Poland has been growing constantly. So, from the perspective of teaching organizations, it might be important to know if there are any differences between Polish and Ukrainian students, and between students of different gender and age, in case of their online behavior pattern, as it might influence their attitude to learning in general and to distance learning in particular. So that was the main motivation for our research. In order to answer research questions you can see on slide, a project was undertaken by the Faculty of Krakow University of Economics, Poland, and Żytomyr Polytechnical State University, Ukraine. So we would like to answer those research questions. What are the differences between Poland and Ukraine in perceived student well-being, hours spent online, social behavior patterns, attitudes towards online communication, and attitudes towards online education? As you could see at table 1, the respondents of survey present differences in respondent distribution according to gender. So in Poland there are more women than men, in Ukraine the opposite. And also it is visible that Ukrainians were on average much younger than Poles. It is connected with the fact that in Ukraine, students start studies the age of 17 or 18, while in Poland usually at 19. Hence, the vast majority of Ukrainian respondents are below 20, whereas in Poland most of respondents were aged between 20 and 24. Here you can see distribution of respondent general IT skills according to gender and country. It is shown at figures 1, 2, and 3. And it is shown that about 40% of respondents from Poland and Ukraine assess the skills as average. But however, only 2.5% of Poles assess their skills as below average, while even 17% of Ukrainians assess their skills as such. When we're talking about respondent general IT skills according to the age and country, there were visible differences between age groups. It's especially apparent in young group, where the results are about 1% and 13.5% respectively. Hence, it seems that Ukrainian students' population is much more diversified as far as IT skills are concerned. In both countries, by the way, men in general assess their IT skills higher than women. When we're looking about distribution of respondents' technical conditions according to gender and country, we have to say that about 9% of Ukrainians reported constant or frequent technical problems. And this is a lot from our point of view. Whereas in Poland, only 3% thought that they have frequent or constant problems. This indicates the difference between technical environment in Poland and Ukraine. In both countries, by the way, women assess their technical skills slightly better. Also, it is shown here that people in both countries in elder age see their technical conditions as above the average. Going to research question 1, connected with students' well-being, we can see that deviation in students' well-being is visible both among Polish and Ukrainian students at similar level, as it is shown at table 2. However, the older Ukrainian group didn't notice changes in well-being, while the older Polish group reported slight increase in well-being. When we're talking about hours spent online in our research question 2 and average numbers of online spent and related to studies per week, we can see a difference in time spent online between Polish and Ukrainian students before the pandemic. So Ukrainian students on average spend 6 hours more online per week than Polish students, You could also see it at table 3. Those differences were visible in all categories. Also, it should be noted that during the pandemic, the number of hours spent online were almost equal in Poland and Ukraine, respectively, 36 and 35 hours per week. However, in both reported populations, females spent less hours online than males, both before and during the pandemic. Similarly, the number of hours spent online in relation to studies before the pandemic was higher in Ukraine than in Poland. The difference visible also in all categories. When we're talking about proportion of total online activity, increase attributed to online learning, table first showed that online studies contributed mostly to the increase in number of hours online. So in percentage change, 100 means that all of the increase connected with online learning. The values for Poland are close to 100%. So it seems like entire change related to online learning. But in case of Ukraine, except for the younger group, the values are quite distant from 100%. The medium group is 130. Well, we can interpret it as online learning for the resignation from other online activities that was popular before the pandemic. While in case of older group, the increase in online activity was related definitely to other activities than learning. Talking to hours spent online and proportion of total online activity increase attributed to online studies, the share of online learning in total time spent online increased both in Poland and Ukraine. But seems like Ukrainians spent proportionally more time on learning online before pandemic. Going to research question 3, social pattern behavior. First, we would like to pay attention to estimation of average number of online and face-to-face friends. There are visible differences in the average number of friends online between Polish and Ukrainian respondent. As you could see, the average number of contacts online decreased in Poland and increased in Ukraine. On average, the number of face-to-face friends decreased in both populations. However, this change was more drastic in case of Polish respondents. Talking about frequency of contacts online, as figure shows, Polish respondents keep in touch with online contacts much more intensively than Ukrainian ones. In both respondents groups, the increase in constant online communication is visible during pandemic, but more considerable in case of Polish respondents, even 16% increase. Coming to research question 4, attitudes towards online communication, we'd like to start with respondents' preferences. And it is visible that pandemic contributed to a more favorable perception of online communication among Ukrainian respondents. Also, it's difficult to note any global differences between Polish and Ukraine in terms of age, but it's interesting that in terms of communication constantly, the increase in Ukraine is slight, while in Poland it is significant. Coming to changes in attitudes towards online communication, in all categories, the changes attributes towards online communication were slightly positive, with a greater difference among females. In both Poland and Ukraine, we saw difference according to the age. The scale of positive attitude change in older group is much higher than average. This means that a significant part of this group forced to use online communication due to the circumstances of pandemic gained more positive opinion of it, while young and medium group hardly changed their opinion. Perhaps because they are already used to this form, so no changes were visible. When we're talking about attitudes towards online education, both Polish and Ukrainian males preferred distance learning more than females, before and during the pandemic. But these preferences were stronger among Ukrainian males. Similar to changes in online communication were said the changes in attitude towards online education. A positive change was visible in both countries, but greater in Poland. Taking into account the gender parameter, the positive change in attitude was greater in case of women, especially in case of Ukraine, where it was over 3 times higher than men. In the young and medium groups, the scale of changes was similar to the average for both countries, while in older group it was greater than average. In case of Ukraine, it is over 3 times higher than average. Before coming to the conclusion, we should pay attention to quality of distance learning. It should be taken into account that the quality of distance learning in Ukraine might be lower than in Poland, because this country has less experience in this type of learning. In Poland, the usage of distance learning was more intense, and some students might already fed up with it even before the beginning of pandemic. Such a difference between the members of the OG group and the other groups that we can see in result of our research may result from the fact that although the students had no habit or even had a resistance to online learning, but usage of this form forced by pandemic could significantly change their attitude, and this attitude changed. This is interesting also that women changed their attitude towards online learning to much more positive than men, similarly to elder students. Coming to the conclusion, the paper presents the analysis of Polish and Ukrainian students' online behavior before and during the pandemic. We analyzed students' well-being, online behavior patterns, and preferences concerning distance learning, of course in relation to students' gender, age, and country, as it was planned. Summing up the possibility of distance learning, it might attract more people to undertake studies, because it facilitates more inclusive education, and also it could be a great way out for students from Erasmus. In further research, we would like to investigate thoughtfully different aspects of online learning, focusing mainly on perspectives of online learning, and of course, to pay attention to model of an education after the pandemic. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much for your research findings, and some questions, please. I see Jarosław Wątróbski wants to. Oh?
No. Maybe my hand was left, but I have no question. Maybe just one simple question about dynamic, the nature of the everything. I have the question to authors: if you conduct the research and take into account the changing of the values, or you collect just one set of data? Thank you.
I can answer this question. The set of data was collected after the pandemic, when students already had time to rethink everything they've got while pandemic and maybe after the pandemic times.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, I'm the second one of the authors, and I think that definitely was kind of a snapshot. So we did this in a moment of time, but this is interesting, especially for the fact that there is a war in the Ukraine. So it's probably the findings would be different. Probably we would, especially like Zhytomyr is in the area when maybe not now, but it used to be in the area than where the war was, taking place. But we will continue it also within this, let's say, environment that we need to get to today. Okay, thank you.
Yes, indeed, it seems to be very interesting from a scientific point of view. As you know, war in Ukraine, that's one thing, crisis and so on, economical aspect. But the second most important aspect is pandemic itself, as you claim from the title. And as we observe, the pandemic has a different level. It depends on time, on mutation, and so on. And I think that partially or not, it will influence the result and our behavior also in scholar terms. Thank you so much for your kind answers.
If I may, so.
Dariusz, yeah?
I have a question about considering the media of the distribution of the questionnaire. What was the media of the distribution for the questionnaire? Was it through, for example, Google Forms or something other, like, for example, well, maybe asking to answer through the Facebook or so on? So it is interesting, especially in the terms of different type of behavior in social media of the students between the Poland and Ukraine. So if you can answer this, thank you.
Both surveys, I mean, in Poland and Ukraine, was made by Microsoft Teams. So we asked students to fill the survey with the help of emails, but still they were filling it with the help of Microsoft Teams forms.
Thank you. And if I may, another questions, were there any statistical tests of difference conducted here? Or it was just only the information, how many scored students were registered and no statistical significance were tested?
Okay, maybe I will answer this question.
Yeah,
we just made it like that. We used just descriptive statistics.
Okay.
Of course, in the future, we will consider also doing like more advanced research and maybe build certain models using structural equation modeling and going with more quantitative analysis. So this was just initial study.
Okay, thank you very much.
It is very interesting how online teaching will develop in Poland after the pandemic, yes, and during the war in the Ukraine, because the war, I suppose, increase the development of online teaching in the Ukraine, and now in Poland everybody want to on-site learning.
Well, we are now thinking about further research. Unfortunately, students in Ukraine are forced to use distance learning, but it is more connected not with even war on territory of any city, but it is connected with an ability to build appropriate shelter for students of university. So now students who have no opportunity to visit schools or universities on site, if it was not connected with general school or university destruction, because there were cases, it is connected generally with an ability to build appropriate shelter. That's why they have to use distance learning now. And what about our research in Poland? Well, not all students are now resistant to distance learning, and we even see some of them that are interested in it even after the pandemic. But it's more appropriate for students who are learning, who taking parts in studies not on site, but maybe participation in Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we didn't do the research about that, but I was just asking some students, especially for part-time students, and they are really interested in still having the online because, you know, it saves some time and money for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, it seems to be interesting to conduct the research how the pandemic influenced ourselves forever. Take a look on us. A few years ago, it was impossible to meet online. However, now we are on pandemic or after pandemic, but the hybrid formula is our reality. The same situation is in the different studies for students. We have some online lessons and they are permanent part of studying. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.